When it was announced that the follow-up to the original Doctor Strange would in fact be titled Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness, it was followed up with the confirmation that they were going to a much scarier place and following a more horror theme for the upcoming film. Now, Marvel Studios' own Kevin Feige walks this back and explains exactly what we can expect. So we know plans always change when it comes to Marvel Studios. We've talked about this, they come up with an idea and then they're always evolving until the film is out. Now recently Kevin Feige was in some interviews and answered some Q&A, and he specifically talks about Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness, which I will toss the quote up here on the screen so you guys can follow along and see what exactly he said in regards to getting asked about Doctor Strange 2 being a horror film. He said, and I quote, "Multiverse of Madness is the greatest title we've ever come up with. By the way, which is one thing that's exciting about it. I wouldn't necessarily say that's a horror film, but it will be a big MCU film filled with scary sequences in it. I mean, there are horrifying sequences in Raiders that I, as a kid, would cover my eyes when their faces melted, or Temple of Doom, of course, or Gremlins, or Poltergeist. These are the kinds of movies that invented that PG-13 rating. By the way, they were PG, and then they were like, we need another rating, but that's fun. It was fun to be scared in that way, and not a horrific, torturous way, but a way that is legitimately scary, because Scott Derrickson is quite good at that, but scary in the service of exhilarating emotion." So what he's saying here, in case some of you aren't following along, or maybe he kind of states it in a weird way, is they're not going for shock horror. Now, one thing, if you follow this channel, if you listen to me talk about films, is I hate films like the Saw sequels, for example, which aren't scary. They're just disgusting. There's nothing scary about them. It's a pop scare or something gets chopped off and it's just disgusting looking, or some sort of crazy contraption. But some of my favorite films of all time, including my favorite film this year, Midsommar, is a different type of horror film. It's about emotional drive. It's about pushing the story forward while having scary elements and building up tension so you resonate with the characters and you connect with them when there's a horrific scene or something happening to them. That's what he's stating here. And as he talks about it, there's plenty of movies back in the day like Raiders of the Lost Ark, which includes scary scenes, but they're in service of a story. It wasn't a horror film. That's what he's stating here, and honestly, I'm really excited by this because it is Scott Derrickson, and he's going to have to, flex his horror muscle and deliver something else, while also making sure that they aren't just doing gory horror, extravagant contraptions like those Saw films or Hostel or any of that garbage I really hate, because I really can't stand those. And when you think about modern day horror, it's kind of going back to what made horror so good back in the day. It used to be about emotion and connecting with characters, and in the mid-2000s it changed to this, how much can you shock people? Like, what can you toss on the screen to just shock people and make them go, oh god, that's gross, I don't want to stare at that. That's not horror. That's having no talent and just tossing buckets of blood everywhere. If they can do what Kevin Feige's saying, deliver true emotional horror, then what's wrong with that?